what Confucius emphasized is education. Education could shape a new human being in an essential way. Confucian education focuses on 4 disciplines. They are the Li, music, the documents, and the poetry. In Confucius' time, there were also 6 arts. They were rites, music, writing, mathematics, maybe arithmetics, archery, and chariot driving. These were presumably the arts to be mastered by nobles. Writing was an important training, but Confucius did not seem to emphasize professional training of archery or chariot driving. When Confucius participated in highly ceremonialized archery contests, he did not appreciate the skill of archery. He thought that the point of archery contest is not merely to cultivate a spirit of rivalry or a desire for mastery over other people. Rather, Confucius emphasized that even on such a competitive occasion, the nobleman is supposed to be restrained by ceremonies, behaving as a nobleman does. Even in archery, it is the victory of moral power which is celebrated. Confucius took it as his responsibility to provide moral education. This is the civil aspects of the cultural heritage. Once Confucius admonished one of his most scholarly disciples, Zixia, I quote, to be a Ru who is a noble man and not a Ru who is a mean man, end quote. A Ru who is a mean man is the pedantic expert in the cultural heritage, who utterly fails to grasp the deep meaning. From this we can see that the learning of Li involves not merely the study of concrete rituals and ceremonial prescriptions, but also embraces a knowledge of the institutional settings of these practices. In this regard, Confucius emphasized the strictures and prerogatives of rank, the protocols of international relations, and the functions of various offices. He thought that those things were part of traditional constitution of the empire handed down by Zhou dynasty. As part of moral education, the Book of Documents contains a lot about matters of ethics and matters of policy and political organization. Confucius compiled the spring and autumn annals, and he was deeply concerned with the history of his dynasty. If you read Analects, you will find lots of references to historic facts and historic figures. It is only by plunging into the reservoir of historic experiences that one knows how mankind abides in the Tao or falls away from the Tao. Confucius said, quote, "There may be those who can act without knowledge. I am not one of them. Having heard about many things, I select that which is good and follow it," end quote. So the knowledge of Li, history, and documents refers to the objective social and political order. And poetry and music might apply mainly to the inner states of the heart. The poetry, by its powerful, effective imagery, appeals directly to the sentiments. Quote, it can arouse proper sentiments. It can arouse one's justified indignation, as well as a deep sense of solidarity with others. End quote. Confucius also emphasized musical education. Music involves instrumental performance. This is a skill that is to be mastered by the educated people. It also involves teaching the listener how to discriminate between lofty elevating music and the depraved popular music. Confucius believed that music and dance can directly and powerfully mold a person's affective life. It can lift the heart to a point at which it is open to the most elevated thoughts. A man can therefore be inspired to the noblest actions. Well, not everyone can attain to the same state of knowledge. Understanding can be reached in a variety of ways. Quote, those who are born knowing it are the highest. Those who know it through learning are next. Those who toil painfully to learn are next. And those who toil painfully but cannot learn it make up the bulk of the people. End quote. The sage king could attain to the highest state of knowledge in a magical way. Confucius did not claim himself to be such a sage. He is not, quote, one who knows it from birth. I love antiquity and am diligent in seeking it out, end quote. Confucius' love of antiquity shows that he was convinced that the Tao can be found realized in the human past. Confucius thought that cumulative and empirical learning can call to mind a vision of the whole if it is pursued in the correct spirit. To his disciple Zigong, Confucius asked, quote, you think I believe that my aim is to learn many things and retain them in my memory? End quote. Zigong replied, quote, is that not so? End quote. Confucius continued, quote, no, there is a unity which binds it all together, end quote. Among Confucius' disciples, the one most capable of grasping this underlying unity most immediately is Yan Hui. And Zigong described Yan Hui as a person, quote, who has but to hear one part in 10 in order to understand all 10 parts, end quote. Confucius' emphasis on empirical learning does not preclude his concern over thought. Confucius said, quote, he who learns without thought is utterly confused. He who thinks without learning is in great danger, end quote. He also said, I have spent a whole day without food and a whole night without sleep, thinking. It was of no use. It is better to learn. Another important aspect of Confucius' moral education, or even political education, is his concern with language and relation of language to reality. According to Confucius, the language of familial and social roles, that is, the words that refer to father, to ruler, son, or minister, those words do not refer simply to bare biological or political facts, but every role is the bearer of his own role norms. For example, the word father carries the meaning that the father will act like a father. When the Duke Jing of Qi asked Confucius about how to govern, Confucius simply said, quote, "Let the prince be a prince, the minister a minister, and the son a son," unquote. At that time, the Duke Jing, his rule was being threatened by the rising menace of the Chen family. He exclaimed, quote, "How true! When the prince is not a prince, when the minister is not a minister, one may have a dish of millet in front of one and yet not know if one will live to eat it." Quote. When Zilu asked Confucius what he would do if the ruler of the state of Wei were to ask him to participate in government, Confucius replied as follows, quote, "Would it not be necessary to correct names? If names are not correct, then one's words will not be in accord with one's actions. If words are not in accord, then what is to be done cannot be correctly implemented. If what is to be done cannot be correctly implemented, then Li and music will not flourish. If Li and music do not flourish, punishments will not be appropriate. When punishments are not appropriate, the people will not know where to put their hands and their feet. That is how to behave," unquote. Therefore, a nobleman uses names only in their appropriate way, so that what he says can be appropriately put into effect. A nobleman in his speech leaves nothing to chance. In the state of Wei, there was a succession crisis. A worthy prince had taken on the duties of his unworthy father. Although he deserved to rule, he should not have usurped his father's title. According to the convention of filiality, an heir is not to usurp a father's title while the father is still alive. The prince's behavior is a violation of the norms of filiality. He destroyed the link between name and behavior. And this violation of normative order would break the entire fabric of Li. A good society is basically held together by the moral force of Li and music. Now, the Li loses its moral power. Perhaps the ruler has to turn to penal law for help. The penal law works depending on the physical sanctions, and the physical sanctions operate in a different realm than the realm of Li. Then the whole system might face the danger of total chaos. That was a terrible picture. The misuse of language in the speech might be driven by some ulterior motives. This is also a source of disconnection of language from reality. He thought that clever talk might be used to disguise real feelings and embellish ulterior motives. Quote, "Clever talk and a pretentious manner are seldom associated with ren." Well, later on, we'll discuss the notion of ren. Roughly speaking, ren is a cardinal virtue. So here, clever talk and pretentious manner are seldom associated with a virtue. Well, Confucius' disciple Zilu held an office with the Ji family. Zilu appointed someone to a position. Confucius thought this man was insufficiently educated. Zilu said to Confucius, "Why can one only be considered learned when one has read books?" Confucius was angry, said that he hates glib people. From this we can see Confucius was much concerned with moral education through reading classics. Confucius also put an emphasis on the prior moral disposition a self-aware learner can bring to his learning process. A learner is not only full of eagerness, his learning process itself depends on the simultaneous cultivation of certain moral dispositions. Quote, "A noble man who broadly studies culture and restrains himself with Li is not likely to go wrong." End quote. Although sincere observance of Li does not flow naturally out of learning process, learning without a concern for the constant practice of Li may deviate from the moral life, from the norm of moral life. The will to be good is a precondition for learning. So, learning is central to the cultivation of individual and ordering of society. Without properly motivated learning, the virtues are blind, and the Li is mechanical. Zilu was skeptical of book learning. Confucius said to him, quote, "Love of Ren without a love of learning is beclouded by ignorance. Love of knowledge without a love of learning is beclouded by dissipation of the mind. Love of sincerity without learning is beclouded by harmful actions. Love of straightforwardness without a love of learning is beclouded by rudeness. Love of courage without a love of learning is beclouded by recklessness. Love of firmness without learning is beclouded by cruelty." End quote. From this, we see that learning is an absolutely essential aspect of the noble person's self-cultivation. According to Confucius, most people cannot fully acquire the true learning. That is, the learning that is required for the establishment of the Tao. The reasons might be that they were not in the favorite circumstances, or they had inherent limitations. They did not have time and energy to devote to the learning process. Many of the hereditary holders of power have no taste for learning. Some individuals who have come up from below might become noble people. Anyhow, Confucius thought that those who govern must acquire true knowledge. Only those who acquire true knowledge ought to participate in government. Without this learning and knowledge, the Tao cannot be restored. There must be an elite class of learning people. So far, we have talked so much about Confucian education. Confucian education, in essence, is a process of ritualization, a process of humanization, a process of civilization. At the end of the day, This is concerned with construction of social hierarchy, a new ethical and political order. Okay, this ends our discussion of philosophy of Li. The discussion topic for today is this. Please write an essay elaborating on Confucius' philosophy of Li. That's all. Thank you.